What's up guys, welcome back to Destiny Updates for another Bungie Mail Sack Breakdown. This week Deej starts it off by talking about their thank you video they recently did, as well as all the stuff they've done over the summer, the events, going over to Germany and all of that, so that's pretty cool. But to get into the actual questions, starting with one from Spawn who asks, so what's next for the fallen statue after Gamescom? Deej replies, his fate is at current unknown. Our captain didn't have his papers in order when it came time for extraction, so we left him behind. He's on the loose in Europe now, and there's no telling where he'll go raiding for treasures. We fear the worst. And then basically saying that we can expect to see him again at large gatherings of would-be guardians. Moving on to the next one from Saxels, who says, I was hoping you could explain how someone with no friends will be able to find partners to join up in a fire team together. Deej replies, the answer to this question lies waiting deeper within this site, Lone Gunman. You're on Bungie.net, which puts you one click away from a virtual city of guardians who have already started to follow one another's movements. Then he also linked the Destiny forums as well as the private group section of the site where you can join up and meet other players. And then B Breezy asked, what's the coolest thing to do in Germany? And now that you're back in the US, what's the coolest thing to do in Washington? Deej says that the answer to both of those questions is meeting people from the Bungie community, and then of course talking about Gamescom and PAX. He then proceeds to show these two hunters cosplaying at PAX, which looks pretty awesome. After that, Father Franklin says, Urk said two things in an interview that I would love to have addressed. 1. Players can combine supers to perform unique actions as a group. 2. He answered to the title of community manager. I thought you were the community manager. Deej says, your first question is not linked to said interview, thus it's invalid. We don't comment on rumors. I'm guessing what happened is he embedded an interview onto his question, but it wasn't the right one or something like that. But I definitely seem to remember Urk hinting at something about players combining powers, but I don't remember offhand what interview it was from or what exactly it said. But then to answer the second question, Deej says, Guardians are always more powerful when they have someone to back them up. And then he says, or was that the answer to both questions? So that hint there, combined with whatever it was Urk said in his interview, does make it sound like we might be able to combine our powers or our supers, which would be pretty awesome. Deej also says, this community is shaping up to be a real beast. Any hopes of even attempting to manage it will rely on a proper fire team. So Bungie basically has two community managers, which is pretty cool. I haven't really heard of any other game company that has that. And also, just so you guys know, that isn't really new info. We've known about it for a while, but it's still quite cool. Moving on, Destiny Italy says, there will be some sort of squad commands, like help me or attack? Deej replies, whoa bossy pants. Yeah, thanks to the modern wonders of real-time voice chat, you'll be able to say things like, help me or attack, or don't let that Cabal Centurion flank us, draw your heavy weapon and add them to the dunes. Now I'm sure he meant to ask, will there be squad commands, not there will be? And since his name is Destiny Italy, I'm guessing English is not his first language, so it's not really his fault. Moving on, Coupe de Grace says, in your opinion, what is the most fantastic spectacle in Destiny? Deej says, this debate will rage eternal. We welcome it. We encourage it. If everyone ever agrees universally to this point, we'll all go home. And then there's a couple of panel answers, starting with Kevin, who says, 180-degree Nova bombs. Nothing feels better than raining space magic down on some unsuspecting pursuers. And then Cameron says, the community forming around Destiny is a spectacle that is pretty awesome. Finally, Jason says, seeing the Earth come up over the horizon on the moon, never knowing what the future may hold, and explosions. So that all sounds quite cool. Seeing the Earth rise up on the horizon of the moon is quite an interesting thought. I mean, I wonder how that would look. Well, I guess astronauts have already seen that, but still, it sounds quite interesting. I definitely want to see what that looks like in-game. The next one comes from Unisaur64, who says, you mentioned the podcast in the previous sack, implying that you would have an update when you were Starside. Deej says, I didn't imply anything. I dared you to ask me again, and you have. Thank you. The podcast is making a comeback. Earth is even casting the panel on Twitter. And then Urk adds, with a little bit of help, we've located the necessary equipment and scored a soundproof room. I wanted to book the first go this week, but things got nuts. That's good and bad news for you. It means the podcast will have to wait just a little while longer, but it also means that something more substantial is in the works. Sit tight. So if anyone is looking forward to the Bungie podcast, expect to see that coming up relatively soon. Like I said in the last one, I didn't actually listen to the podcast back in the Halo days, but I'm pretty excited to listen to it now. I imagine they'll be discussing some pretty interesting Destiny stuff, and hopefully we'll get some new info, or at least a new perspective on some things. Now that was actually the last one I thought was worth mentioning, but there is one more thing, which is that Bungie will be giving out some of those exclusive trading cards from Gamescom over the next week on Twitter. So if you're interested in those, then stay tuned to their Twitter to find out how to get those. Now the thing about those trading cards is that each one has a code on the back that will be used to unlock some special content later on. We don't know what this content will be. I'm guessing it's not going to be anything huge, but it still should be pretty cool. Now the awesome thing about these codes is that they're actually reusable. Any number of people can unlock the content with the same code. Now, various people who are actually at Gamescom and receive some of these cards have given out their codes for people to use publicly, so I'll leave the info about that along with the codes in the description below. Again, we don't know what the content will be or when we can unlock it. We can't unlock it yet, but you guys can keep note of the codes and then unlock it when the content becomes available. But that's it for everything I thought was worth mentioning in this week's mail sack. If you want to read the full thing, you can of course find a link in the description below as usual. But thank you very much for watching, I hope you enjoyed. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on all the latest Destiny news, and I'll see you in the next update.